Need anything, Steve?
Oh, you betcha, but we don't have time, so get with me. Get with me after the meeting. I'll give you the rest.
Okay.
I'm always worried that this isn't gonna work, for some reason, I can mess up a computer like that.
I understand.
Yeah.
Gosh, I almost didn't recognize Mike.
There was something nice about getting the big package on paper every Thursday.
Ready?
Yeah.
If I could call the meeting to order, we'll come out of closed session. And we need to do that by roll call, but be it resolved that to our best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from opening meeting requirements and only such matters as were identified in the motion to go into closed sessions were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed session. Every second.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. And if I can, Mr. Morton, if I could have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, sir. Y'all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And thank you. If we can have a moment of silence, take this time, as I will, for prayer for our wisdom and knowledge and decisions that we may be making for today. Thank you. If we can, we have going on to right number 2 here. Introductions and our recognitions.
So good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. I'd like you to introduce you to Brianna Pierce, who started in technology services at the end of July. Brianna took the position of desktop analyst, technician. She comes to us after completing 6 years of service with the United States Air Force, where she was part of a team who provided technology assistance and deploying technologies at McCord Air Force Base in Washington State. At Botetourt, Brianna will be part of the help desk team and will be responsible for taking calls, helping end users, initial triage of tickets that come in, on-site support when needed, and all technology deployment, PCs, all that that we work with. So welcome, please welcome Brianna.
Welcome and thank you again for your service.
Thank you. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
And we have a special acknowledgement for, I'll wait until you come down. For Mr. McCoy.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I know that's more than just Mr. McCoy, but stay tuned. This year, we submitted 2 award nominations to the state chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm pleased to announce that in competition with our peers across the state, we won both of the awards for which we submitted these nominations. Next year, we'll go for all of them. The first is the Foxhound Award for Distinguished New Professional. I'll provide detail on why he won this award first. I'd like to give you a list of other awards I nominate for him for if these categories existed. Most likely to make a board member laugh in a public meeting, best on-air personality, most creative, quickest learner, most energetic team player, and most passionate about citizen engagement. John McCoy is truly a one-of-a-kind catch that we are so fortunate to have in Botetourt County. Prior to coming to work for us almost 2 years ago, he worked for the Berkeley Group for almost 2 years. He has a long list of achievements before coming to Botetourt, but in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on his most recent accomplishments. Long-range planning is hard work, but it's especially hard in smaller localities where the capacity of the day-to-day can easily distract and drain the resources, the patience, and the concentration needed to focus on planning for our future. John has a pronounced ability and a dedication to pull off this balance in a way that's unmatched. Weekly, he comes up with ideas and opportunities to better engage with our public, to educate and inform those we serve, and he can communicate both the concepts of goal setting and strategic planning as well as the daily ins and outs of zoning. He immediately identified and sought to fill gaps within our county and took on a leadership role in a countywide committee to proactively prepare for and seek out federal, state, and local grant funding. He's responsible for the county's update to the comprehensive plan, including organizing and administering a citizen advisory committee, managing a $25,000 contract utilizing GIS, story mapping, and other Esri tools, creating specific engagement plans and outreach for the comprehensive plan, as well as the Gateway Crossing Overlay District. He serves on the county's budget task force, the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission's Transportation Technical Committee, and presents land use cases to you all on the Planning Commission. He was on the Planning Committee for this year's conference that was held in Roanoke. And I don't have to tell you, his personality lends him to communicate with anyone we serve, from someone applying for a home occupation permit to you, our local officials, to being interviewed on live TV. We're proud that he was selected this year and has completed the inaugural APA Virginia's first leadership development program. If that's not enough, he's also successfully secured 2 grants, one to plan for a potential greenway and a Safe Streets for All planning grant in cooperation with the town of Vinton and Roanoke County. Finally, because he can't seem to get enough of planning, he also recently sat for and passed the AICP exam, serves as a planning commissioner for the town of Vinton, and organized meetups with other young planners around the area when he isn't serving as the captain of his kickball team. I asked a colleague for help with the nomination, and she said, John is the epitome of professionalism. He's a great team player, and he's always thinking of new and unique ways to engage with the public and plan for his community. We're very fortunate to have him on the Botetourt County team. I know you all agree, so please congratulate John, not me, sorry, in recognizing Mr. John McCoy as the Foxhound Distinguished Young Professional of the Year. Next, I am pleased to present the Holzheimer Economic Development Award. This award was received by our community development staff, but it's an award that is owed to many people within the organization and external to the organization, to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Botetourt County won this statewide recognition for its recently adopted Gateway Crossing Overlay, a zoning tool intended to transform an underutilized and underperforming area of the county into a vibrant mixed-use community benefiting residents, businesses, and visitors alike. The Gateway Crossing Overlay was born out of the Gateway Crossing Area Plan, a small area plan adopted into the county's comprehensive plan in 2017. The plan highlights and prioritizes connectivity, mixed use, multifamily residences, and enhanced pedestrian and bicycle connections. It builds off existing amenities such as the Appalachian Trail and the location along 3 major roadways. Julie Chop, Vice President of External Affairs for APA Virginia, remarked that it's evident that the Botetourt County team worked incredibly hard and generated real-world ideas and smart design to implement the vision without losing sight of Botetourt's ideals and character that make it a special place in the Commonwealth. The plan seized upon a once-in-a-generation VDOT design of the road network to envision an attractive entrance into the county. And to implement the vision, county staff worked with consultants to develop a set of tools reducing burdensome development standards, incorporating walkability and bikeability, and connecting the built and natural environments to each other. It unlocks new opportunities for high-quality design while sustaining the existing regulations which protect Botetourt's rural areas. While developing the tool, county staff forged relationships with stakeholders in the broader community through multiple meetings and workshops, online engagement tools, and direct conversations with citizens, planning commissioners, and officials. The project stood out to the awards committee for many reasons, including the initiative to capitalize on a once-in-a-generation redesign, the innovative approach to encourage development in a predefined growth area, and the county's use of online engagement tools and outreach methods to encourage input. So I am pleased to present this award and very thankful for the opportunities to work with staff, planning commission, and everyone involved that we have every day to work with our community to realize the best vision for Botetourt County.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations all. Jonathan, good job. Thank you. Yeah, I knew you would. Is that what it takes? Is that might be, so I'm looking for your next award next month. Okay.
At least he showed up because at planning commission, I gave a really great speech about him and I ad-libbed it. And I turned around, he was not even in his chair. So I'm glad he's here.
Yeah, good answer.
Okay, if we go number 3 to citizens comment period, again, we're going to ask you, I'm going to give you first letter, the first name, and then last name. It will not tell address, but 3 minutes is what I ask you to speak. Christian, or C. Bear, Fincastle.
Well, here I am again, members of the board and those in the audience. Thank you for indulging me in my time. I would like to, instead of speaking directly to the library books, which is the issue that I would like to bring to the forefront of your minds, I would like to speak to the authority that each one of you have been given. You've been allowed by the people to have this authority. And furthermore, you have been allowed by God to have this authority. And I want to say that each one of us is going to die one day. The writer of Hebrews speaks about us all being destined to die. Each one of us will pass away. So the only thing that really matters in our life is what goes on between the birth date and the death date. And we are going to be held accountable for every little thing that goes on between those dates. You know, Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians, he says, each one of us will be judged for the works done in the flesh, whether good or bad. And we will most certainly, each one of us, including me, including all Christians, every one of us is going to be judged for what we've done in the flesh. And so this issue that there's porn in these books is a frustrating issue to me, and it's terrible and it's sad. And I ask you guys, please remember that this is something that God, when judgment day comes, and it most certainly will, one day, praise the Lord, he is coming back. One day, each one of us is going to have to give an account for what we've done while we're here on this earth, each one of us. And so I ask you, please remember that you will be called into account just like every one of us. It doesn't matter the amount of power, the position that you have, you will be called into account. And just remember that as you're making your decisions. I ask that you would take into consideration the pornography in these books as you make your decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is A. Tucker, Fincastle.
Morning, afternoon.
Afternoon. Botetourt County is a very unique county. I think we can all agree that Daleville is seeing an explosion of economic growth. And it's almost as if someone has a list and wants to check off all the boxes of things to provide for the people in this area. Subdivisions, check. Apartments, check. Restaurants, check. Grocery stores, check. Gas stations, check. Car wash, donut, ice cream shop, check, check, check. Hotels, check. Gyms, check. There's just too many things to mention. But before we get really carried away, let me ask you, why do we need a rail to trail in Botetourt County? Actually, let me rephrase that. Why do we need this specific proposed trail in Botetourt County? I used to live close to the Jackson River Trail, Jackson River Scenic Trail. I used it for both walking and riding my bike. I'm not against rails to trails in theory, but the Jackson River Trail is vastly different than the trail being proposed here. Jackson River Trail used an abandoned railroad bed. The area being considered for this proposed trail is not truly an abandoned railroad bed. The state has deemed portions of that to be used as a state road. The state road has not been abandoned. It is not an area that has just been sitting there, as Terry Austin said in a May 8th, 2023 interview in the Cardinal News. By asking trail users and drivers to use the same road, the experience on this proposed trail is going to be extremely different and immensely inferior. The Jackson River Trail measures from 9 feet to 13 feet wide. State Route 817, which is in this proposal, is a dirt and gravel one-lane road and is only 12 foot wide in many places. So how can the two coexist in this limited space? The proposed trail will not be safe. There's no means of escape for the trail user or for a driver. So again, I ask, why do we need this specific trail? Is it just to check another box in the quest to develop one area of the county? Is it because other counties have a rails to trail, so we should too? So before you even think about considering the project, I please advise you to physically see the area. Remember, this proposed trail is not using an abandoned railroad bed in its entirety. It is using state roads. This trail will not be safe. Wouldn't the county as a whole be better off to look for a different place to offer a trail? Find an area where trail users and vehicle drivers can both be safe and separated. Shouldn't our safety be more of a concern than checking off a box? Or is our safety being offered for sale? In conclusion, according to what I read in railstotrails.org website under the liability issues, I would like to state for the record, my husband Mark and I do not accept liability brought about if this trail is approved. We do not accept liability of trail users on a state-maintained road leading to our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, V. Graham, Fincastle. Again, try to make this 3 minutes, please.
Good day. I would think that many of you here have heard the song that has taken the internet by storm, Rich Men North of Richmond. Let me give you some of the lyrics. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control, want to know what you think, want to know what you do. And they don't think you know, but I know that you do. I personally would say that they act like they want to know, but they don't really. This is proven by the fact that county officials have been working on the trail project since 2021. When did we find out about it? Just this year, 2023, when the cat was let out of the bag. Did the county ask us, the people, for our opinion? Did they talk to the people of Craig Valley? Did they send letters to the people that live along where the trail will go? No. They listened to special interest groups from Roanoke and bicycle groups from across the state and even the country. But they care. They care so much that VDOT is tentatively having a citizens information meeting in September when they tell us they don't really have to. As we have been told by our transportation czar, Delegate Austin, the state owns the road and can do with it what they want. So, but they will show us boards, let us ask questions, and maybe change the location of a parking lot because they care so much. We come here month after month and tell you of the concerns that we have with us living there. We know, we see. We know about the narrow road, the drop-offs, the flooding, and the disaster waiting to happen. Instead of just hearing about it, we want to present you with the opportunity to see. See the enveloping cloud of dust. See where the trail would go through the middle of a man's cow pasture, up a person's driveway. We want you, the public, to be well informed of all issues before you go to the VDOT meeting. So we are trying to make it convenient for you to see what VDOT will not show you. We invite you, all concerned citizens, and those of you who are elected to represent us, to come to the meeting room at the Fincastle Library on Saturday, September 9th, between 10 and 1, or Monday, September 11th, between 3 and 7. We have pictures, we have information, and we will be glad to talk with you. See for yourself what we are talking about. And here's some final lyrics from that song. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world has gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. So I want to give each of you. I hope you really do come.
It's all over the place. Gonna knock it.
Next is Jay Flander and Castle.
Jim Statlander, 2228 Old Rail Road, Eagle Rock, Virginia. When the cat was let out of the bag back in January, we started coming to the meetings. We asked you, what can be done? You said this is a state project, state money, not much can be done. The county isn't involved. Nothing you could do. One even said that maybe you would take a vote on it and come in agreement that you don't like it or you do like it. That's never been done. A member of our group in July brought me this. 250 pages. It's a FOIA. Emails from all of you in one way or the other, and any other county administration official. In here, it talks about seeking funding, trying to get the trail from the state. Now, that kind of sends up a message to me that you want it. I'm not going to get into all the details of this, but I will say, and the details will come out. But you knew about it. You know about it. It's crossed the desk. You've got the emails from them. Whether you paid attention to that or not, it's not my business. Maybe you don't read your emails. Maybe you don't know what's going on. Everybody in here isn't in here, but there's a few. All of this brings out another thing that I want to point out. I mean, there's proof in here that you want it. But recently, the Roanoke Valley Greenway Commission put up a website. Now, we understand that if we're against the trail, there's going to be people for the trail. But let them fund it. Why is that the county's money trying to promote the trail? They have this website, and Botetourt County is part of the Greenway Commission. And they aren't neutral. They're promoting a trail. And we are asking that if you're truly neutral, you would also help fund those against it. Be equal if you're truly neutral at this point. So we're asking that, one, that you fund derail, just like you do the Roanoke Greenway Commission, and you go to our display exhibit coming up in September. That would show where you truly stand, if you're neutral or not. Having said that, I'm going to present you with these. It is the bill to be funded, and backing materials show you where that came from and what the Roanoke Greenway Commission website says. Thank you.
M. Jenkins, Minnehaska.
Good afternoon. Let me begin by saying I'm a visual person. You can explain megabytes and gigabytes to me until the cows come home and I still won't get it. Show me and I will understand. I had an idea that derail needed to show the people the difference between trail gravel and what they would encounter on the Oriskany leg of the proposed trail. So at our booth at a recent car show, we displayed a pan of each for people to see. Hikers, bikers, and equestrians were shocked when they saw the difference. But the most interesting person I spoke with that day was a young boy. His first question to me was, why do we have 2 pans of gravel? So I brought him closer to the pan and I explained the small gravel was from the local trail. The large gravel was from a road that they want to use as a trail. Then I asked him if he would ride his bike in the large gravel. Without hesitation, he said no. He then wondered why we didn't use small gravel instead. I explained that vehicles travel this road daily and the fine gravel would not be suitable. In conclusion, we must ask ourselves, not are we smarter than a 5th grader? The question we need to ask ourselves is, are we as smart as this 4th grader? Thank you.
Bar Sellers, Newcastle.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Sellers. I reside at 3176 Old Railroad, Eagle Rock, State Road 817. You have heard so many messages rewarding Mr. Stratlander and Marty's thing about the gravel and so many others that we keep coming back. So what I have is just a little personal note. It's been each month that we've appeared with our green shirts, so no one can be misguided about what we represent. I'm 85. I live on State Road 817. I have a 12-year-old beautiful chocolate lab that loves the creek. If the trail happens, I will not safely go 1/4 mile down 817 from my driveway to a private area that has steps that takes me down to the creek with Duke. He gets in the water, cools off, messes around in the water. Maybe he's checking fish, I don't know. But I'm sitting in a little canvas chair, enjoying the water also as it runs over me. It's a delightful way to be. My point that I want to make is that this past Sunday, I saw 2 horsemen and a rather large shepherd dog running with them. It's a beautiful sight, absolutely beautiful. Your guess is as good as mine as to what happens next. My Duke could in no way defend himself, so there is another safety issue. I'm not going to be safe. My prized dog is not going to be safe. Leave this alone. Let God and nature take its place here and leave us in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can move on to, everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve.
Here, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5 here, in approval of transfer and additional appropriations, Mr. Zarella.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and everybody in attendance. For the month of August, there's 1 transfer request, which is the quarterly transfer. With respect to appropriations, there are 10 pass-through items and 1 regular appropriation being requested. Pass-through items 1 through 10 are for use of state grant funds, discrete funds appropriations, shared and miscellaneous receipts, contributions, a miscellaneous credit, contract payments, and expenditure reimbursements. Appropriation item 11 relates to a budget oversight and corrects the FY24 budget with an appropriation for the same dollar amount that was approved and included in last year's budget, or the prior year's budget. Especially requested that this transfer and appropriations be approved by the board. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Zarella?
There's no questions. I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Zarella, number 6, approval of accounts payable and ratification of short accounts payable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Total expenditures being requested for approval for August for the general fund, including debt service and all other funds, is a combined $1,601,188.37. Payable disbursements of note are as follows: under technology services, $35,000 paid to ESRI for annual software maintenance. Under Fire and EMS, $34,750 paid to Western Virginia EMS Council for EMT/paramedic program tuition for 5 trainees. Under transfer to EDA, $572,475 paid to the Economic Development Authority of Botetourt County as funds for the county's grant funds portion for the first 2 invoices for the VATI/BACO/LUMOS broadband project number 2. And finally, under Fincastle Museum project, $52,250 paid to AECom for contracted services relating to the grant-funded Fincastle Museum project. Are there any questions or comments related to the accounts payable expenditures for the month of August?
Any questions from Mr. Zoll?
I have a question about that last one, the Fincastle Museum Grant Fund. Just for clarity, what Fincastle Museum is that?
That's the one that we received the $6 million for.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
And did you do short accounts payable or are you fixing to now? Short accounts payable? I have a question on that too.
Accounts payable, sure.
Yeah. The Greenfield Preservation Fund, 15,000. What's the nature of that?
On the, okay. Give me a minute. I don't have detail for it. I mean, it's on the accounts payable list. I can find an invoice and send it to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to speculate that? Okay.
Any other questions, board members? I move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Zarella, number 7, approval of personal property tax or PPTRA.
Yes, sir. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to consideration of resolution for the personal property tax relief in Botetourt County for the 2023 tax year, in terms of history, prior to December 2005, state legislation was passed which set a fixed cap on the amount of total personal property tax reimbursements that the state would provide, thus taking the form of a fixed annual block grant for Botetourt County of approximately $3.4 million. As part of the process, this prompted the board to adopt a specific relief method in December 2005, which applies the relief to the taxpayer for the first $20,000 in value on a per vehicle basis and has been shown as such on each personal property tax bill. For the 2023 tax year, projected personal property valuations yield an estimated reimbursement from the state of 41%. This projected percentage takes into consideration the composition of the county's vehicle value base and the fixed nature of the state block grant. This would render a taxpayer portion of their bill of 59% of the full tax amount. When compared to taxpayer relief percentage for 2022 of 39%, the largest factor for the increase in relief percentage this year is due to changes in used car values, a slight reduction in the number of qualifying vehicles, and an increase in the assessed value base. With that, we request the board to adopt the attached resolution, setting the county personal property tax relief percentage at 41% for the 2023 tax year. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Joel? If no questions, I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then number 8, if we can go to VDOT monthly report, Mr. Oh, sorry. He is not here.
She's here.
Good
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
We are working on finishing up our paving contracts for the year, our normal yearly paving. We do still have some surface treatment routes that will take place. We did a little of the shoulder work on Nace. We got that taken care of. And we did the ditching on Mountain Pass. Several locations, I think, out through there. I think that was a couple of questions that you guys have had about.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys getting that done.
Sure. We did have a couple T&E traffic engineering work orders on our list. Since they sent you the report, the second one has been resolved, and they've decided that they do not think that they need to do anything with it as far as the speed limit on Old Hollow Road. They do not recommend any changes there. We continue to do our regular maintenance. We're working on a lot of mowing, pipe replacements, grading gravel roads, or tree trimming. Seeing a lot of that going on. Don't think I have anything else unless you have any questions.
Supervisor Martin, do you have anything? Rich?
No, sir. They've got taken care of what I needed to have done. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, same.
Good.
I do. Thank you. So thank you for NACE work, and I will get with the residents that talked to me about that. I do have two other safety concerns, and these are pretty significant. Pico Road, you know, if you're headed toward the elementary school and you keep going across the railroad tracks, there seems to be, for whatever reason, and I cannot figure out why, a lot of tractor trailer traffic through there. So first of all, I'd like to investigate that. And again, the shoulders are in pretty bad shape. So especially you can imagine if a pickup truck, which is common in that area, and a tractor trailer meet going opposite directions, there is no room for crossing. And I have one constituent who has had quite a few times tree damage because the tractor trailers are knocking limbs off and then they fall into the road or onto the fence, and somebody has to clean that up. So pretty significant concerns are coming to me from Pico Road.
Okay. Certainly take a look at that.
If we could look at that, that's number one. And number two, the exit ramp, if you're traveling south on 81 and the exit ramp at 168, it is very, very short. And I'm hearing a number of concerns and it's also not good visibility. Like if you're coming up that ramp, the guardrail is high and the bridge is high. So if you look to the left, you really can't see oncoming traffic. And a number of constituents have told me that they have almost gotten T-boned with people coming really fast up that ramp. They can't see cars coming from Arcadia. And so that is a really large area of concern for us. I don't know if some signage can help. I know we can't extend the ramp. That would be nice, but certainly some signage. And maybe if you come to the end of that and look left, you'll see how the visibility is really hard to find.
Sure. We'll take a
So
look.
I appreciate that. And thanks again for NACE.
Oh, sure.
Yes, the only thing I have is that not a long time ago, it's been a while though, that we had a failure in the piping underneath Highland Drive. And that's been fixed, but I also asked VDOT to take a look at Richardson's Road because we really used that road quite a bit.
Okay.
All I see is some gravel on each side, but there's certainly some more that needs to probably be done. I'd like to have them take a look at that again.
At Richardson Drive.
Yeah. That'd be
We'll
fantastic.
take a look at that too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Number 9, the presentation from Mike McAvoy for the West Virginia Water Authority. Thank you very much, Mike, for coming in.
Happy to do so, Mr. Chairman.
Hunter, thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. Again, my name is Mike McAvoy, and we're going to talk about some capital improvement projects that we are working on that affect the county and will help with the water distribution. These are primary water distribution projects going on in the county. Before we begin, I think you all know Hunter Young. He's the county's appointee to our board of directors at the Water Authority, and Hunter's a professional engineer, and he's a good resource for me and our staff because he deals in stormwater issues, and sometimes that's not something we do too often. But so I'm happy to have him on the board. Also with us today is Dr. Arvine Okioga, where she's up at the top there. And she's our director of engineering. And these projects that I'm going to talk about today are really her responsibility to implement. So I'm taking credit for a lot of her hard work here. So, all right, let's see. How do you, never, yeah, I'm going to mess that up. How do you advance that? Scroll. Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some improvements that we're doing in our 1385 HTL. And I'll explain what that means, that these are both transmission and pump station projects. Also, we have some reliability projects that came out of a master planning exercise that we did a few years back that we're currently working on right now. We're doing some work up in our North Botetourt system. You might remember I came and talked to you maybe 2 years ago about this system. This is right at the edge of the county before you get to Allegheny County, the town of Irongate. That was a private water system. The provider for that system just walked away. So we assumed ownership of that through a process the health department has. And so we're getting ready to do some renovations in that system. Also, some improvements on our 1329 HDL system, water transmission system. And this is actually a very large service area for us and includes not only Botetourt County, but also Roanoke County, Town of Benton, and City of Roanoke. So this is a pretty big project we have underway. And one of those projects is important for Botetourt County. And then again, I mentioned we had done some master planning exercises. And so we looked at a couple of kind of what ifs and kind of long-term ideas. None of these are funded projects, but wanted to bring them to your attention just so you're aware that we're paying attention to them. So, let's see. There we go. So this is kind of overall map of the water improvements that we're working on right now. And that's kind of the big thick blue lines there. Again, most of these are in our 1385 pressure zone. The one you see there that's labeled Cloverdale Loop, that is actually 1385, but it's really designed to help us with our 1329 system. So what does that mean? The numbers I'm throwing out there. So the pressure, what determines the pressure in your home or business is your elevation of your house relative to the elevation that the water system is operating at. And we call that HGL, that's hydraulic grade line. And so for a good portion of the county's system along Route 11, Lee Highway, up through exit 150, up to the Botetourt Commons pump station, that's a station we have at the Radier Funeral Home, all those are in our 1385 HDL pressure zone. And again, what happens to determine that pressure is you look at where what the operating system is for the water system minus your elevation in your house. And that can tell you how much pressure you have. Typically, we think of those in PSI and essentially, but for purposes of planning and being able to describe different pressure zones, we convert those over to feet. So we look at those as elevation. So, and we have lots of pressure zones in the authority service area. Let me go back here. And so the schematic you see here, thank you. Yeah, please help me out a little bit. The schematic you see here, the majority, the majority of the water that we are providing to customers in Botetourt County comes from Carbons Cove. And you can see on this graphic here, the elevation of the Carbons Cove plant is 1136. If you're in the city of Roanoke, that elevation is actually lower, and water coming out of Carbons Cove flows by gravity down to the city, and that's what creates the pressure differential for people in the city there. However, a lot of this water is moved into the county and eventually into Botetourt County, into Roanoke County and Botetourt County. And you can see there's a series of pump stations here. So there's an existing Hollins pump station. You can see we're not too clever on our names here. We have an existing Hollins pump station that pumps to our Hollins tank, and then a Strawberry Hills pump station that pumps to the Strawberry Hills tank. And each of those is gaining elevation. And eventually we have the Botetourt Commons pump station that I mentioned that's at the Radier Funeral Home, and it pumps up to the Greenfield tank, right outside this building here. And that elevation for this part of the system is at 1580. You can kind of see that Carbons Cove is at 1136. So we're essentially adding energy to raise the operating pressure for the water system by about 450 feet here. So it's a fair amount of change there. And we're nearing capacity at our Highlands Pump Station and our Strawberry Hills Pump Station. In addition, we're seeing good demand on the Botetourt Commons Pump Station. So when that one is operating, it's moving quite a lot of water, and the Strawberry Hills tank sometimes has some issues keeping up with that. So our solution here is to do a bunch of pipe improvements and also put in a new pump station that will take water from Carbons Cove, essentially bypass the existing Highlands Pump Station, the existing Strawberry Hills Pump Station, and pump directly to the suction side of the Botetourt Commons Station. And that'll alleviate a lot of these bottlenecks that we're seeing during peak times. So really excited about these projects. Yeah, go ahead. Next slide. So the first one I want to talk about is actually a pipe project. And this is improvements to our exit 150 pipe that goes into the Botetourt Commons Pump Station. And this is essentially just an upsizing. We're going to replace about 2,000 feet of existing 8-inch pipe right underneath the interstate up to the pump station. This will help us with some of those suction pressure issues that we're seeing. We're going to put in 12-inch line. We're coordinating this with VDOT. A lot of this work has actually been coordinated with VDOT, looking at their Interstate 81 improvements. And we just got approval from the Corps of Engineers. Buffalo Creek is a regulated creek, and they just signed off on our permitting there. So we're hoping to get this out to bid and start construction in October. And that project's about $1.2 million. So the next one, and this is the bulk of the 1385 improvements, is a new Highlands Pump Station. We've leased some land from Hollins University, and we're going to be building a new large pump station. This is the one I mentioned that was in red on the graphic, which will bypass the existing stations. And will provide considerable capacity to Botetourt County. In addition to that, we're also going to be constructing almost 10,000 feet of 16-inch main along Route 11. Most of that is in Roanoke County, but some of it is in Botetourt County. You can see the county line there on the map. We're hoping to start the pump station construction in winter of 2024. The water main project is some of that's already actually underway right now, and the bulk of that will be in 2024. And the total cost for these two projects together is about $6 million. So transitioning over to, so altogether those two projects, are about combined $7.2 million just on those reliability improvements in the 1385 zone. When a couple other things we're working on, again, these are reliability related. We just started work. You all might have remembered maybe a month or two ago, you approved permitting for us for the Sanderson line. This is just creating a loop. This is about 5,000 feet of 12-inch pipe that doesn't currently exist along Sanderson. And it's connecting up the pipe that we have on Sanderson Drive near the Roanoke County line with some pipe we have in Reed Mountain. And again, this is all still in the 1385 pressure zone. And what we're doing is kind of creating a loop here. We just have some reliability concerns that if a pipe were to break either on the existing pipe on Sanderson or Reed Mountain, you'd have customers out of service, including two schools. There's a Reed Mountain Middle and an elementary school there. And obviously we don't want those to be out of water. So this is a nice improvement for us. It also improves fire protection in this area. So we're really excited about this. It's under construction right now. If you've been down that road, and it's about $1.6 million. So. Thanks, Hunter. This one is also one we're really excited about, and this is another reliability piece. And again, it's designed to help the Botetourt Commons pump station. Again, right now, we just have one feed into that pump station, and we're going to upgrade that line underneath the interstate I mentioned a little while ago. But essentially, water's coming down from our pump stations in Roanoke County, down Route 11, all the way up through the interchange there at the interstate to the pump station. And if any of those were, if we had a main break anywhere along that section, there wouldn't be any water for the pump station to then pump up to the Greenfield tank. Now, the Greenfield tank is pretty big and it has a lot of capacity, so it would most likely keep everybody in water during the time it took us to repair that break. But what we really would like to do is get a second feed to the Botetourt Commons pump station. And that's what this Gibson Lane project is. We had an open house a a couple weeks ago. And it was well attended by the residents along Gibson Lane. In addition to the reliability issues that we're excited about, it will actually provide some water service to the people along Gibson Lane if they wish to hook up. You may or may not be aware, we don't really have a mandatory connection policy. So if somebody wants to hook up, they can, but we don't require anybody to. It's going to go underneath the interstate. And then we're going to coordinate with Rona Gas on some of their property. That's right across the street is where they had the big compression station. We're going to work some easements out with them and then follow up Tinker Mountain Road up to exit to the pipe that we're putting in along exit 150 there along 220. So this is a pretty big project for us. 10,000 feet of 16-inch main. It's under design right now. We're still working on the easements that are needed. We expect this to start next summer, and this is about a $5.5 million project. So altogether, all those projects I described to you, they run about $15 million, and they're really designed to improve reliability for customers in Botetourt County. Next, I want to move up to the northern part of the county. Again, I mentioned that we took over operations of the former Iron Gate system that's in the county. You can kind of see the border there. It runs right across between Botetourt and Allegheny, and the town of Iron Gate straddles both. We're going to be replacing the parts in the Botetourt side of the town there. And we were able to get a grant from the Virginia Department of Health for $400,000 to do this improvements. It's not as much as we would have needed for this project. And so what we're actually going to do is have our own crews are going to go up there and do that work to try to save money and get this project in under budget. And we're expecting that to start in October, November timeframe. I also mentioned the 1329 HDL. Again, this is one of our larger ones in the authority service area. And not only does it serve portions of Botetourt County, for example, the East Park Industrial Park, Dynex, they're on that 1329 system, but it also serves a good portion of the town of Vinton, Roanoke County, and a good portion of the city of Roanoke. And it's served by a large pump station in the Statesman Industrial Park in the city of Roanoke, and water essentially is pumped out down 460 and to the Bonsack area and then goes up Cloverdale Road. And what we would like to do is, as part of these improvements that we have underway that are under design right now, we'd like to bring a line down Reed Mountain Road, down Cloverdale Road, and this would be coming off again off our 1385 system. So all the improvements that we're doing now will allow us to interconnect the 1385 system and the 1329 system. We'll have a pressure reducing valve at the right location along that route you see on your map. And that will make sure like the East Park stays in service if there were to be a main break along 460 somewhere. So we have to do some improvements to the pump station at Statesman, and there's a couple other piping improvements along 460 we need to do. And again, this loop right here, we're estimating all those together are about $10 million. We expect to start work on those. Their design's underway right now. We expect to start work on those in fiscal 25, 26. And we're hoping to be done by fiscal 26. So those are kind of in works in the design stage. This is a picture of the Botetourt Commons pump station. And what we're doing now, I'm transitioning to some of our master plan projects. One thing we looked at is we said, what if you were to get a big water user in Greenfield? If you were to land a large industrial client, how would we supply that? And so we've looked at what it would take to take that pump station from 1 million gallons a day to 2 million gallons a day. And we estimate that cost at about 1.1 million. It's currently unfunded. One thing that we want to do is finish all those other projects I've already talked about, see how those improvements work, and make some decisions about what we would do here. But it's kind of nice that we already have some preliminary design in place. We kind of know what would be needed for that if you were to get a large customer up here in Greenfield. One thing we may need to do is look at some additional storage at some point. And that would be another storage tank somewhere between the pump station and the Greenfield tank, somewhere in there. So it might actually be another tank next to Greenfield or another elevation that was compatible somewhere along 220. Another project that we're going to wait and see how these improvements go, but this is kind of the one between all those other ones I've described. Our computer modeling has showed that if we can do the phase one projects in the 1385 zone and also do the Gibson Lane project, that we actually could wait on this project. So again, we want to get all those existing or current meal plan improvements in place. But at some point, we're probably going to have to upgrade the transmission line along Route 11, Lee Highway there. We've been coordinating with VDOT. And actually, if we do this project, it probably will not be till after VDOT has finished their improvements along 81 and in this part of the interstate. So this would not happen any earlier than fiscal year 27. It's again about 8,000 feet of 16-inch main, and essentially just provides the upgrade between the two pipes that we're already going to do. Also, it's still unfunded. It's about $4.4 million. So switching over to sewer a little bit, we haven't really talked much about sewer, but two master plan projects or two of the projects that came out of the master planning process were sewer related. One being a project to run a gravity sewer line from the lift station that is currently serving Ashley Plantation over to the Greenfield Industrial Park. And you can kind of see the map there. And there's a couple of reasons for this project where it might make sense. First of all, that lift station in Ashley Plantation, we provide the sewer to Ashley Plantation and the surrounding developments around it. But water is provided by a private company. So this is really more of a sewer kind of project for us. And the lift station actually serves the area east of 220 and south of Greenfield Street. That lift station is nearing capacity, and there's a surprising number of platted lots in the Ashley Plantation and surrounding areas that likely will tie to sewer but haven't been built on yet. So we're kind of looking, over the next 15 years or 20 years or so. And so that station will run out of capacity at some point. In addition, its design is such that it actually pumps north. So it actually goes up the gravity line heading north, crosses 220 and flows through International Parkway and, through the industrial park here, business park, and then flows down and eventually down into the Tinker Creek Interceptor. So as you guys build out the Greenfield Park, you're starting to, from what Mr. LaRue tells me, you're starting to look at going around the northern part of the park now, maybe looking some extensions there. And those areas will have to go into the same smaller diameter line that's currently International Parkway. So again, if you were to get a large sewer user there, one way we might be able to accommodate that user would be to take this lift station offline, stop pumping it north into the park, and connect it up to the southern end of the park, and we avoid this capacity limitation that you might see on International Parkway. It's also the sewer runs through some neighborhoods there, or adjacent to some neighborhoods that we've occasionally gotten some calls from over the years about failed septic tanks. So it would provide an opportunity for somebody that had a failed septic tank to maybe hook up to that line. Right now, we're estimating that about $5 million, and again, that's kind of unfunded. Another one that's similar, and I know you guys are familiar with this. There has been some issues with septic tanks over the years in the Rainbow Forest area. So we've looked at sewer going out that direction toward Rainbow Forest and then going up Laymantown Road. You can serve a surprisingly large part of the Rainbow Forest subdivision. It would take quite a lot of gravity sewer. It's almost 20,000 linear feet of 8 and 12-inch pipe, and then you'd still have to go up the street. So this would just be the backbone of this, but it would serve a large portion of that area. So again, if the elementary school up there were to have an issue at some point, or the number of septic tank failures up there were getting worse, there is a solution there. It's quite expensive, I'll say, and that cost estimate, and after that should also say unfunded. We currently don't have this one budgeted, but if something that should the need arise, there is an option there, but it is quite expensive. So I'll just leave it at that. And finally, we are working with your staff in the planning department. We want to get a lot of these, especially the water distribution projects on your comprehensive plan maps so that, those are out there and everybody can see what is planned for the next few years. In addition, we expect to do some treatment plant upgrades at both Eagle Rock and Glen Wilton. We're starting to look at those right now. We've also looked at some interconnecting possibly the Delnita Hills and Keswick Farms systems. These are standalone well systems that we manage for those neighborhoods. Delnita Hills actually has some pressure issues, and that really has to do with how the whole system was constructed. There just wasn't enough elevation change between that storage tank and where those houses are. It's really not practical this time. It'd be very expensive, but we have taken a look at those. And finally, I would say we're happy to partner with the county on projects that you don't necessarily see here today. We see our responsibility as fixing stuff that breaks, providing improvements that provide reliability. But if there are projects that for whatever reason you'd like to look at, a couple of examples. Roanoke County right now, there's some areas that they would like to see some additional residential housing. And so we are partnering with them on a project to extend water to those areas. In Franklin County, we've done extensive work with the county. They have been developing their Summit View Business Park. And so when they bought that land and developed that park, there was very little in the way of utilities there. So that's been a great partnership to get utilities, both water and sewer, to that business park. Most of these have been a 50-50 split with the counties. And we're kicking off a project right now in Franklin County. They wanted to develop a commercial center in the Union Hall area on the south side of Smith Mountain Lake. And we're working to put a water system in right now. And again, on a cost share, they allocated some of their ARPA dollars toward that. So those kind of things are available, and we're happy to talk to your staff if you guys have a project in mind. So, and with that, I'll happy to answer some questions.
Any questions? Board? I do. There's 30.5 million.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
that you guys are looking at spending. How does that equal out to the people that are consuming this water? Increase in cost.
So in October, the county will have its first water rate increase that it's ever had since you guys joined in 2015. If you recall, the part of the merger froze water rates for a 5-year period. And then there was a 3-year period when those rates actually reduced. And now those rates are the same as are the rates we charge to customers in the city of Roanoke, Roanoke County, and Franklin County. So everybody's all on the same system. We manage the system in totality. So you'll see your customers will see a water rate increase in October, as all the other localities are. But I would say that the amount of revenue that'll be generated from that rate increase doesn't even come close to covering the capital project sales. We essentially share those costs among all the customers.
Okay. Next question. Aqua and the water authority here, as far as when you were coming by the same spot, if somebody wanted to transfer into West Water Authority, I know they have deed on the present people that have the water. There's no way to change that. Is that correct?
Not easily. That essentially Aqua would have to grant permission for them to jump. Assuming that it's possible, they'd have to grant permission for the customer to leave and hook to us. And I've actually apprised the management for Aqua Virginia here about what we're planning, so they know these projects, and they have a certificate of convenience that allows them to serve those areas. We don't intend to, while we may be working around those or possibly in some places through those, we don't intend to try to hook up their customers. So.
I know that's going to be a question asked.
Yeah.
Back to the funding and the number, the bottom line, do you seek external, and it's just curiosity, what kind of external funding is available for these projects, grants, things of that nature? Are there any that you can pursue? And if so, do you?
Yeah, we do when they're available. Until COVID, there was very little money available for water and sewer utilities in the Commonwealth. Typically, You could get a low interest loan from the health department for a water project or the Department of Environmental Quality for the sewer project. Those were funded by federal allocations to the state, and the state runs these loan programs. You have to pay them back, although what they do is they use the federal money to buy down the interest rate a little bit. Also, rural development has some loan options the same way. That's federal dollars that might help, but you have to qualify as a rural area to get those. Since COVID and, like ARPA, the American Rescue Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, there is a lot more money available for capital projects, water and sewer especially. And so tonight, for example, we're actually having an open house in the city of Roanoke near Addison Middle School for a project where we were awarded $9 million from the health department to replace existing small diameter galvanized lines with larger diameter mains to improve fire flow and water quality. And so we're having an open house to kind of preview that project for the residents in that area. That $9 million is essentially $4 million in low interest loan and a $5 million grant. I can tell you in my 30 years, I've never seen anything that sweet. That's the best deal I've ever seen.
Good deal.
And that money was really targeted to replacement projects. So that's why this section of the city of Roanoke really fit well into that. So there is a lot more money available, but mostly it still comes from our ratepayers. So.
Any other questions?
Chairman, just one final question. Overall, the improvements that you were discussing in the southern part of the county, from Hollins and up to Greenfield and so on, does that pretty much take care of things for the foreseeable future, or will
That's probably gets us good for 20 years. And it really depends on maybe how much growth here in the industrial park, up in Greenfield. So if you get more large users, Greenfield's at the end of our system. If you get more users, which we hope you do, or we'd be excited about that. But it does mean that we have to push more water north. And so that would really kind of be the driving factor. So, thank you.
Mr. McAvoy, Mr. Young, thank you very much for coming in
Thank you.
and presenting this.
Sure.
I've been involved with Botetourt's water and sewer infrastructure for over 20 years now. Some time ago on the consulting side of things, but then for the last 5 or 6 at the Water Authority. And it's interesting for me to see that several of these water projects, especially along alternate 220, exit 150, and a little bit north of there, that are finally starting to come to fruition are some of the same projects that we were talking about needing 20 years ago for growth. So
I think it's very fortunate and the foresight that we had to join the Water Authority.
that's helped tremendously.
Yeah, it really has. And it's put us in the opportunity for Greenfield here and the development for further development. So
Absolutely.
I can't say thank you for all that was involved in that.
The interconnections with the Carbons Cove system, the various hydraulic grade line areas, the Route 460 at East Park, that's much better than it was years ago.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done.
Yeah, thank you.
And coming.
Appreciate it.
We can go to number 10. Considering MOU for track trail, like Cherry Blossom Trail. Mandy, thank you.
Wow, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm very excited to be with you today to provide you a great opportunity that we have here in Botetourt County. The Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation Kids in Parks program is a network of family-friendly outdoor adventures dedicated to getting families outside. The Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation started the Kids in Parks program in 2008 with the vision to improve the health of children and the health of parks across the nation. The goal is to make these trails more attractive and more fun for novice users. And in a time where childhood obesity rates are steadily climbing and children are spending more and more time on technology and less time outside, it's critical that we give them the opportunity to get excited about getting outdoors. So that's where the Kids in Parks Track Trail program comes into play. So through a grant courtesy of Carilion Clinic and the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, Botetourt County has the unique opportunity to create a track trail at the Cherry Blossom Trail just across International Parkway. So you'll see here 2 examples of what a track trail sign will look like. So what we're proposing is a memorandum of understanding before you today that would be between us and the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. And this grant is valued at about $6,500. And through the grant, Botetourt County will receive a beautiful sign that'll go at the trailhead of the Cherry Blossom Trail. It'll be designed specific to the Cherry Blossom Trail. And then through that grant, we'll also receive brochure holders that'll go under the sign. So if you can imagine, this is our sign. It's designed specific to what you would see on the Cherry Blossom Trail. And then under it, there'll be 4 different brochures that kiddos can pick up and use as their family walks on the Cherry Blossom Trail. So through the grant, we'll get those brochures, we'll get the signage. In addition to that, every kiddo who registers their adventure on a track trail will receive prizes from the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. So our trail would go on this national network of trails on the Kids in Parks website. And then the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation and the program will obviously share that data with us of how many users we're getting at the Cherry Blossom Trail and how many families are enjoying the trail. So we're very fortunate to be given this opportunity. We are responsible for the maintenance of the sign, obviously. It has a 10-year warranty. We're responsible for maintaining the trail, which we already do. And there's a very limited cost. Once we use up the brochures in the initial grant, we'll be responsible for replenishing those, but that's a pretty nominal fee depending on how quickly they go. So would like to give a huge thank you to Ken McFadden. Ken actually serves as a trustee on the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. So he connected our department with this great grant opportunity. Mr. Lockaby has taken a look at the MOU. So I'd like to ask for your consideration of the partnership with the MOU and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from seconds?
I was just thinking as I was looking at this earlier at the packet, and I just want to say out loud, I guess, I would love to hear from Mr. Lockaby that he has vetted the MOU and had no concerns. And what are your takeaways from this, if any?
None. It looks like it's a fairly normal MOU. And if Mandy says it's going to be a good initiative from the perspective of her department, it's kind of the operations side advice, and I respect that.
I think operationally it's fantastic. I just wanted to double check that it had been vetted from the liability legal aspects and that all looked good.
Any other questions? Ken, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I certainly appreciate this wonderful thing that we have in front of us. We're asking for the approval of the signing of the Track Trail Partnership MOU. Do I have a motion of approval?
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Mandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy.
Next, number 11 is consider the Route 220 corridor analysis scope and fee. Before Mr. Lanford starts up, I just want to let you guys all know that we've been looking at this for a long period of time. I think even when Steve was here, we were looking at that corridor as well as when Mr. Martin, you've been here. We've looked at this as well, trying to get this taken care of. So I'll let you move forward. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Scott Horn. Members of the board, it's a pleasure to be in front of you today. As discussed at your meeting last month, we brought forward a scope and a fee for a section of the corridor that Dr. Scott Horn was referencing for quite some time. It's our understanding that from 460, 220 alternate intersection to International Parkway, there's been a desire to look at the corridor. There's quite a bit of activity beginning at the exit 150 up to Catawba Road. And so that's the first segment of the corridor that this scope and fee encompasses. So I'll very quickly go through what that area and some of the history there. There's been several studies that have already been conducted there, and then a larger aspect of that is the improvements to I-81 from 581 up to that area of exit 150 and modifications to the interstate system and also to the off ramps. From that point, there's been several studies that have looked at that area there around Tinker Mountain Road and the exit ramps, areas around Botetourt Commons, and improvements to the and relocation of the park and ride, and also accommodations around the Appalachian Trail. And then from that segment north, there's been, I believe for 6 years or better now, application through Smart Sale for super street improvements around the 150 corridor. That project, though it's been pushed and well thought out, has not received Smart Scale funding in that 6-year period. And our experience has been, and what people tell us is that, you know, it's atypical for a project that doesn't score well to in the next round of scoring to score well. So the likelihood of that project is moving to a funded state is not very high. And so one of the things that we thought could be helpful in our endeavors to make traffic improvements from 150 up to Catawba to look at pedestrian accommodations as well, especially around the Lord Botetourt High School area, is to engage Scott Hodge and Mark Jamison at AECom. Scott Hodge is a former VDOT employee and one of the most respected transportation engineers in the Commonwealth. He's the lead consulting engineer for I-81 project in our region. And then Mark Jamison's retired city traffic engineer for the city of Roanoke, has quite a bit of experience combining the traffic programming along with the land use planning that goes into actually identifying the transportation needs. You know, some of the challenges, some of the funding that has gone into some of the identification of the projects looks at the conditions in their current state and projects improvements needed not to meet conditions 15 or 20 years from now, but the traffic conditions around an area with the land use that exists today. And we're well aware that land use, especially around exit 150, is changing dramatically. And so in an effort to be forward thinking and try to come up with projects that meet our transportation needs in the future with land use changes there, we would recommend the engagement of AECom. I'd be happy to answer any questions. There's the fee associated with the work. The total corridor, when we initially began discussions with them from 220 alternate up to International Parkway, it's in excess of $300,000. The scope for this initial segment is, or the fee for this initial segment's estimated to be $96,900. We believe there's an opportunity to fund that through some one-time revenues received by sale of timber at the landfill. And Mr. Zarilla has identified the appropriate general ledger accounts to accommodate that. So if you decide to move forward with the engagement, authorize the scope and the fee, we'd also ask you to make the appropriation in that same amount. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I do. Not really sure where to begin. There, as you indicate in the documents and verbally, there have been several studies like this that VDOT has done a few years ago that the county has done. And there's so many competing activities, whether it's funding or whether it's adoption or whether it's awareness. I'm just not real sure what this document will do and who's going to fire the gun to make it do something. You know what I mean? In other words, I mean, this is really is VDOT, right? VDOT's going to have to agree whether it goes along with Smart Scale or some other funding program. And there's a bunch of those, you know, more than just Smart Scale. So I'm just not, I mean, I absolutely applaud the need and the goal here, but I'm just not sure what's going to happen to it once it's done. And something we've run into a lot, one of these studies that you mentioned, in fact, the exit 150 study, it's out there and we all know it. And I just wonder whether it's a resource to move forward, or is it a cautionary tale to not move forward? You know, and maybe a better way to say that is, once this is done, say if it's sitting on our desk right now, and there's a significant zoning change somewhere in this vicinity along 220 corridor, and we know that this is projecting additional growth, and we're looking at today's hypothetical request, whatever it might be, zoning change. How do we balance all that? I mean, how does this really come into play to be of use? Does it tell us, and maybe a particular example of that is, would this give us the not the opportunity, would we be able to say, we're not going to approve this zoning request, whatever it might be, hypothetical, until we see this study implemented? And if we can't say that, what good is the study? Does that make sense? I mean,
Yes, sir. So from, I believe what, a couple of questions there, but I think maybe to try to not answer the last question related to the application for zoning, but maybe the value of the study is to look at the corridor, and it's from exit 150 to Catawba in its entirety. I think historically they've been segmented up, and projects have been, you have the OIP study specifically around 150, then you jump over the hill and there's another project there, and then you jump a little bit up and there's another project there, to look at the corridor in its entirety, with the land use component, the growth that's associated with it, and come up with some projects, maybe break those projects up a little bit differently as a recommendation out of this that could be successful in future smart scale applications. I think there's also value as projects come with land use, identifying different traffic patterns out there. There's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of opportunity to maybe reroute some of the existing traffic at some of the places where there are a number of intersections, and consolidate those into a single intersection and move some of the traffic away from the traffic that's trying to move north and south on the off of the interstate out into the county, and have some of the other traffic movements be away from 220, so you don't have the number of conflicts that you do. And so it may recommend moving in the construction of roads that we don't know today, to accommodate some of those traffic movements, to go from Botetourt Commons to some of the other proposed developments in that area. I don't know if that probably didn't answer your question. I don't think you could use this document to make a determination on future land use cases, but I think it could take into account what that could look like.
yeah.
If I may add to your comment there, Mr. Clinton, is this going to make a market difference with the smart scale and a STBG?
I think it could, in my opinion, I think it has value to being able to come up with some different projects. Right? So I think, we can, I think there's some value in having the resource, because if we continue to submit the same projects that we've been submitting, I don't know that we'll be successful. And that's not to take away from the projects or the development of them, but that's just not the way that not typically the way the program works. So if we want to see some transportation improvements in that corridor, I think we're going to have to make an investment to come up with what those could look like. And it may require additional involvement or from us financially to make those projects come to fruition, right? I mean, if we want to see those improvements, we may have to put some capital into the projects to help them score better.
But none of it's going to happen unless it falls under the purview of smart scale or STBG or some of those others, right?
That's correct.
3 or 4 others.
There's several others out there. I don't know all the acronyms offhand, but yeah.
And it eventually has to get involved with the regional commission and so on, So I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding where this fits into everything. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know. And I should love it because it's what I used to do, but I just don't know don't know what we do with it once we have it.
I think it's a tool in our toolbox. And as I said, it may open up to us the fact that we need to invest some dollars into it, which we may not want to know to fund those transportation projects.
Mr. Chair, one of the things that has continually happened throughout this whole, well, since 2016 was about trying to get a study from Bonsack area all the way to International Parkway. I know that that had been requested of VDOT for time and time again and time again and time again. And bits and pieces of that have actually taken place along the way. And I know even Brian Blevins had mentioned here recently that they have some of the data that's associated, but they don't have the entire picture. And so what this would end up doing is biting off part of that picture, the entire picture from the interstate north and in conjunction with the improvements of the interstate that's going to be coming along, and tying that together may end up being a very good investment for the community to actually have that put in place. I know that in reality, we hear it on a regular basis about traffic in Daleville and what's the plan? How do you end up managing that? And in the phase of development, I think that we're at a point where we probably actually need to have something outside of VDOT to be able to reflect to VDOT what needs to end up taking place. They're going to end up being more reactive, and that's what happens over time. And this would end up being a proactive kind of approach about trying to get some development taking place along that corridor with traffic is what the idea is, I think. I know that even King has mentioned before about actually having something like this that would end up helping VDOT in their planning for the future. I think, I don't believe I'm putting words in Ken's mouth that he did not say. But so this is something that ends up helping us to help ourselves, I think is what it really does. And whether everything is done at one time or not, who knows? But one of the things that, well, we know the answer to that. It's not going to happen all at once. I understand that. But one of the things that some of our sister localities have done very well, I think, Mr. Clinton, you made mention of it, was going through the regional commission and getting some buy down cost on or some of these projects like the 419 interchange and things of that sort, and the 460 interchange that has that's going to end up happening at some point, 460 and 220 alternate. So this may end up being one of those kind of opportunities to actually get some dollars from some other location, or it may end up including where we have to invest some. But at some point, we need to have something that ends up directing VDOT about what the best solutions are. If you remember, even at the development of the sheets in Daleville, there was a thought that there would not be any needs for improvements and things of that sort. And we ended up having an independent engineer that actually came up with some plans that the company was willing to fund. And it was significant amounts of money that the company was willing to fund, but they would not have had that unless we had gone out and invested some dollars in getting a third-party investment or third-party view of that. I think this is sort of like that, except it's for a larger piece of the pie.
Yeah, that was at the point of sale, so to speak, for sheets. This is a little more speculative and.
True about that.
I think in a follow-up, in my opinion, it's a proactive take, especially following up what you just heard from Mr. McAvoy and the Water Authority folks, especially with the Gibson Lane project in the area that'll now be served with public water there in and around exit 150, and understanding that and how that transportation need is going to be necessary to accommodate what is probably some future growth coming with those utility expansions there.
How will we present it to VDOT? No, that's not our main goal, but it's going to go through VDOT.
Yeah, they'll be a key player in the process. And there's been conversations with Mr. Blevins and Mr. King about the engagement. And I believe both of them have thought that it was a positive move to take those things and combine them together. So we've had at the residency and at the district level, that conversation.
Thank you. Discussion.
So I have like three kind of comments or questions. It seems that what we would be getting kind of is a guiding document to guide us as we look at future improvements, developments in that area that this covers. How binding is it, and how tightly would we have to comply with it, or is it at our discretion?
Yeah, I think it's at our discretion. I think the other piece of the puzzle that comes into play is, these folks will be, as you look at those future land use changes there and at the growth and at the needs, they're also going to be on our side of the table when developers are coming in with proposed transportation improvements to help us understand not necessarily what's in the best interest of the developer that's proposing a certain transportation improvement, but what's in our best interest 15, 20 years from now to make sure that whatever the developer may propose down there is satisfactory to us, or we could use that document is the negotiations with the developers.
And along those lines, with things happening so fast and quickly, especially in that area, what's the longevity or the shelf life of this study?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know that I can answer that with specificity because we're going to.
I mean, it's something to think about. Maybe if we do proceed with this, like, how do we predict? And we can't predict the future, I know that, but some sort of attention to shelf life.
So there'll be a lot of speculation around what the land use could be, but there's a lot of great work that's been done. And you heard about some of the awards that were given today for that land use planning around exit 150 there. So
right.
Hopefully those two are wedded together in the process.
Right. The last thing that I would say, I think, all these bullet points, I'm reading through them and read through them, and they make perfect sense that that's where we need answers to questions. But the one word that I find missing in all of this is safety. We hear so much about safety, especially along that roadway. So if we do proceed with a study of this magnitude and this sort, I think that we should certainly have some attention to safe solutions for transportation.
Yes, ma'am.
All I have.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Lanford, the last study that was done, how long ago was any of that done? In years?
There has not been a comprehensive study.
But the bits and pieces that you're referring to is pretty dated.
It's been intermittent.
So it sounds like if we wouldn't move forward with something like this, then applications to smart scale don't sound any more promising than they've already been. Yeah. And to Ms. White's question about safety, kind of as I read this, so if you read in between the lines on some of this, I think there is a safety.
They don't say it.
They don't say
They
it,
should
but
say it, in my opinion.
right. But yeah, I kind of see where this thing is going, not only
Right.
from a traffic situation, but also,
But to me, that should be kind of front and center.
yeah, well, it could certainly be one of the main goals for sure. Yeah.
Mr. Martin, do you have anything?
No, sir.
So, I think that's why I had brought up a very good point about safety as well as Dr. Bailey. And I have asked VDOT several different times since those individuals and those businesses that are coming onto 220 have difficult times crossing 220 or getting on 220. And unfortunately, our county administrator got to witness an accident with one of my patients. And I want to keep on dilating patients. I mean, I don't want to have to stop because of that, but I want some safety issues that are involved into this whole study. And it looks like it will be with this, but certainly there's a lot of issues on Reed Mountain in that light. There's a lot of issues on any of the corridors that are there coming onto 220 presently. So I'm encouraged to see something, if anything, being done and give us a smart scale, grade that's a whole lot higher. And if it's going to be utilized for that situation as well. And hopefully something will be done. Again, we're looking at proactivity within our county. We're looking at VDOT at reactivity. So hopefully we can push that as much as we possibly can. If this gives us a boost, I'm all for it. Any other comments, further comments? Before we do that, let me, I would ask, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Lanford? And if not, does anybody make a motion for approval?
So move.
Yeah, second.
In that sense, is there any discussion?
I'll just say that obviously we'll approve this, but that we make sure that it's really part of our daily conversation once it's done, and somehow promote it with the regional commission and with VDOT. And, we all hear about plans, grandiose plans that collect dust. This shouldn't be one that does, because it's so specific and it's relatable, unlike a lot of plans. But I just think we need to really push it if we're going to do this and keep it front and center in our discussions with the regional commission and among ourselves on planning and zoning issues. And I'm still reluctant. I'm skeptical about taking bits and pieces of it and selling those bits and pieces for a smart scale project. That's what it would have to be. The whole thing is a smart scale. So it's just I think it's going to take some attention. And it could be, I agree, it'd be valuable if we can make it actually work.
So with that and with those comments, and totally agree with what you're saying here, Mr. Clinton, I think that with those comments, we have a first and a second, we have a brought up in a second on this. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Number 12, the consideration of establishment of a tax rate for certain solar energy facilities in the county.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before you have an item for consideration of two options that are before the board to realize revenue from solar energy generation facilities that may be located in the county at some point in the future. As you all know, alternative forms of energy generation are increasingly being developed across the nation. We have a wind energy facility that's been approved here for construction in the county. There have not been any solar energy generation facilities approved in Botetourt. There are a number that have been approved and constructed and are operating in other areas of the Commonwealth. And before a project comes to the county, staff thought it was prudent, with the assistance of legal counsel, to present before you a draft ordinance that would allow the locality to derive revenue. There are two options for the county to derive revenue, and either of those options would need to be selected by the Board of Supervisors. The first is through local taxation. And you may recall that this body adopted a local wind energy tax a few years ago. So this would be kind of a counterpart to that would be applicable to solar energy facilities. There's a draft ordinance in your packet that would accomplish that. And if that's the route the board would want to go, it would need to be advertised and a public hearing held on that before consideration and adoption by the board. The second option would be to exempt these facilities from local taxation, but to receive a share of facility revenues as prescribed by state law. And that would be a certain percentage of operating revenues generated by the facilities over their lifetimes. Mr. Lockaby has been looking into these kind of facilities and tax issues in a number of places throughout the Commonwealth, and has done a lot of research there and been a really valuable asset in our analysis of this. We've discussed it briefly with the budget subcommittee, and their opinion was that it would be advantageous to the county to adopt a local tax. I believe at your places, you had some tax revenue projections that Mr. Lockley prepared for us with 3 different examples of potential revenues that could be generated from these facilities, either by the revenue sharing method or the local taxation method. In all of those examples, the local taxation method yielded higher revenues for the locality. So that would be the recommendation of county staff, would be that you would consider adopting amendments to the county's local code to implement a tax for solar energy generation facilities in the county, and that you would authorize us to advertise that for public hearing and consideration at your regular September meeting next month. Mr. Lockaby is certainly available to answer questions you have. If I or others can answer questions, we'd be happy to do that.
Any questions, Mr. Mormon? Or council?
I know we, like you said, we talked about this in the budget subcommittee. I don't recall, did we relate, or do we know any evidence of the effect of either one on past projects in other localities, whether it be the taxation rate or the revenue rate, whether it has an effect on the solar energy projects themselves, whether potential developers say, we're not going to go there because we don't like their tax structure, or we don't like the fact that they're taxing us at all.
Right. I defer to Mr. Lockaby if he has any knowledge of that. I do not have that.
Mr. Clinton, to my knowledge, and this is purely anecdotal, nobody's done any studies on this. Anecdotally, companies prefer the revenue share because it's flat, whereas that generally the tax starts off really high during the years when they've just started and they're not yet generating a lot of revenue, or they're still paying off their debt for having constructed it, and then declines over time. So generally, companies prefer the revenue share, but if you look at the nominal value of the revenue stream over the course of the facility's life, tax gives you more, and it especially gives you more if you look at the net present value. There's almost no way to look at it where tax, if you had the same facility, same value, same CapEx, where taxing it is not going to be better for the county. It's just, you have a bigger cash flow at the beginning and then it drops off.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion to authorize the advertisement of the public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Number 13, Apex monthly update.
Thank you, Chairman. Another brief update. We did receive the plans. I believe I communicated that to you last month. We're working through the intake process. They've been distributed to all the reviewers. The upcoming deadline is in a few weeks. And so I know everybody's working diligently on that plan set for re-reviews of all the different components. So still just subdivision plats and site plans, on-site and off-site site plans. No building permits filed or anything like that yet. Any questions?
When that review is complete, those will go back to Apex.
If there are
If there are
outstanding
any
comments, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 14, we have some appointments. Consider reappointments of Danny Agee and Dean Hackett to the Parks and Rec Commission for 4-year terms expiring September 1st, 2027. I did have a chance to talk with Danny Agee, and I believe Dean Hackett has already been he's already been contacted as well. Okay. I move to consider reappointments.
Second.
Any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
And then consider reappointment of David Mormon and Tony Zarella as a Botetourt County representatives of Community Policy and Management Team for a 2-year term expiring September 1st, 2025. I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And at number 15, we have board comments, and certainly like to hear, but First, if I could, I want to acknowledge Kira Reddy, the Executive Director of Chamber of Commerce in Botetourt County. Is there any news, Kari, that you have for us? And there's a microphone right up there. Okay. And I apologize, I had not noticed you earlier, but this is opportunity for the board comments. I'd like to have you.
Chair, board members, thank you actually for recognizing me and allowing me this opportunity. I was up there thinking to myself, like, there's so much I want to share. And I have to wait until next month's meeting because I do want to start as the director of the chamber for the last 2.5 years, going on 3 years, want to be more engaged and involved with you guys. One thing that we have undertaking is, through popular request, is a Botetourt specific map that highlights a number of our natural resources and parks that we've got here in addition to our businesses. So we have been engaging with a out-of-state company to come in and just kind of through ad revenue do a Botetourt specific map. I've talked with Landon Howard of Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge and said, the chamber's goal is to help augment what you guys do for the region and just share what we do with you all. So I know it's kind of putting the cart after the horse, but I'm letting you guys know it's something we've moved forward with, but want to work with county government to help us make this map the best it can be for Botetourt County. So once we start on the design phase, I'd like to work with your staff and of course, Miss Bradbury on ensuring that we present the best map that we can that represents Botetourt County well. We're looking forward to all the new business coming in that's been on the news broadcast the last few days. I think that's the Dunkin' Donuts, the Hampton, the Dairy Queen coming in. We'd love to be a part of that and help do ribbon cuttings and of course, just continue to strengthen our partnership and work with you all as the chamber.
Corey, thank you very much. Any questions?
Can you tell us about what's happening next Thursday?
So next Thursday, we have the honor of having Secretary Matt Lohr, who's the Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, that's going to be speaking. So our ag dinner brought on by our ag committee, which has just been great. Kudos to Ms. White and the board of the fair. We had a great fair, I think week before last, but this ag event sold out within, I think, days. And we advertised it back in the spring. So we're looking for an upcoming way to continue to support the ag community, ag economy here in Botetourt County. So we just keep your ears out for great things and great events that we have at the chamber.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other board member comments?
I'll just follow up on the ag dinner next Thursday. One important point about that is all the food that is served will be produced here in Botetourt County, or as much as absolutely possible. So we are supporting the local producers. A lot of them are donating food, and that's what will be the dinner that night when we welcome the secretary. So we're very excited about that.
If no other comments, we'll resume at 6 o'clock for our public hearings.
I'll second that.